to the Alan Hudson Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. The podcast, of course, is the podcast that gives you proper football and proper talk. Remember, if you like what we do, and lots of you out there do like what we do, please make sure you go to the YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. That'd be great for us so we can get lots more good guests on, like the guests we've got on today. A real Chelsea favourite from the past. He made it, would you believe it? He made his debut at the age of 16. And of course it is Tommy Langley. Welcome, Tommy. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure.
Alan, how far back do you go with this fella?
Well, it's the lovely thing about Tommy is I don't know if he read my message the other day, but I suppose I could add one to that. I didn't really love Tommy Dockett as much as I love Tommy Langley and Tommy Baldwin, but as two Tommies go, we couldn't have had two. Well, not Chelsea, because I'm not Chelsea. Chelsea don't like me, so I don't like them. But I do love people like Tommy, and we just lost the other Tommy, which was a tragic blow.
God bless.
But me and Tommy, I mean, I'd love to have had. I always think about our 70s team. There was a team following us, and I've always said it, that team following us, they had a better bunch of lads than we had. I think you'll agree with that, Tom. You were very close, weren't you?
Yeah, the thing is, Alan, I mean, you come through the youth team. When you come through the youth team and you've got like 7, 8 of them in the first team and on the fringes of the first team, it's great, mate, that camaraderie. I think there was like sort of 4 age groups from probably Gary Stanley, Steve Finiston, Graham Wilkins down to then Colin Pates, Gary Chivers, Gary Johnson, Mickey Fillery, that group. So, and we were in between that. And it was, as you say, Al, it was a great camaraderie. And there was one day where, towards the end, where I think there was all 11 of us, including Ronnie and Catty, to be fair, were all from the youth team, which will never happen again. It's got absolutely no chance of happening at Chelsea, that's for sure. So you're right, Al. We did grow up all together, and look, we weren't in the same class as you guys. I mean, Jesus, I mean, you were a proper team, but what we had was a great bit of banter and a great dressing room.
Yeah, I agree, Tom. Not about. I mean, we were a hard team to follow anyway, wasn't we? We were. I mean, when Ozzy and I left, and Charlie obviously had come to a bit of the ending with him and Sponge, that after their shenanigans down the King's Road, it kind of put an end to that, didn't it? And you could kind of come in, and we always go through this. The way Eddie got it back together again was fantastic. Eddie McCready deserved a medal instead of getting a sack.
Yeah, totally agree.
Unbelievable with you lads. And I remember when he came back and the way you all were, we all turned up for him and all that. It was fantastic. And I think the club broke his heart. They done to him very similar what they done to me earlier on. For all what you've done for the club, and they not only got rid of him, but they told a lie about him. They said that he asked for 2 cars, which he didn't. The truth of the matter was he picked one of the family up, the Mears family, after one of the games and threatened to knock their head off because they were talking about one of the players.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that happened, Tom, I think you noticed, Tony, that when he first got the job, they said to him, part of your job is to go in the boardroom, come to the boardroom after all home matches. And he says, I don't want to do that. And I said, you've got to do it. It's something that the Chelsea manager's always done. And all right, he said, well, I'll do it on one condition, that you please don't talk about the game and please don't talk about my players. He said, I won't be able to handle it. And lo and behold, I think you got to about the third game to the end of the season, and you got beat in this big game, which was a promotion match. And you and me said something, and Eddie flew at him and had him lifted him up against the wall, and that was, they sacked him. It's Eddie told me that when I went to visit him in Memphis, and they come out in the press and said that he asked for a car for his wife, which was the biggest load of rubbish. I mean, Eddie didn't need 2 cars; he couldn't drive himself. He could, but it was, that was the truth of the matter. So why would he want 2 cars anyway? They lied about him, and then he come back at them, so they sacked him. Yeah. So, but what he done, talking about statues, he should have got a statue for what he done in that first season afterwards. Yeah.
No, he was excellent, mate. And what a lovely man. Not only, I grew up watching him, watching you, watching Ozzy, and all the superstars that were around in the late 60s, early 70s. And then obviously to be managed by Eddie was brilliant, and he had such a knack with players. He had such a knack on how to get you on the pitch believing you were better than you were. I was only a kid, and he'd come up to me and he'd go, son, you can be the best centre forward in Europe. Now, I'm a kid, and I'm thinking, Eddie McCready.
That was a very good Scottish accent, mate.
It's as good as it gets, mate. You don't accents and singing. I'm not doing any of that. But he went. So he just absolutely got you on the pitch, believing that you were better than perhaps you were. Which I think is obviously a major trait for good managers, and not just tactically, making sure people get on there in the right frame of mind. And all right, turns out that he was a liar, but I put up with it at the time. That's for sure.
Well, absolutely, Tom. I think, as you say, that's a great trait in any manager. I'm sure Ferguson done it to them when he was a big success at Manchester. He made them feel a lot better than what they were. Mourinho did it with Frank. Told him one day that in the showers that he could be the best midfield player in the world, and Frank said himself he gave him such a lift. But I remember, years later, 1980, I played for him in Cleveland, Ohio, in the indoor league. And to get there was a miracle because I had another deal on the table, but I plumped it to go with Eddie. And in training one day, he done something quite brilliant. The kids, we had sprints, and some could run, some couldn't, as you know. And he said to the ones the slow ones, he said, let me give you a little bit of advice. He said, I'm not telling you how to run quicker. He said, but be a bit more stylish. Don't look like you're a slug, He said, be a bit more stylish and move. And that is how Eddie was as a player. He was very stylish, and he looked quicker than what he was because of that style, and he was quick. Yeah. And it was a great bit of advice for any youngster growing up, not just in your running, but in your technique, Look
the part.
They were the kind of things. And I think it was that, I think in your case, and I see it, and he told me in Cleveland one night, he used to treat you like you were his kids. Mm. His family, I think that was his key to success.
Yeah. No, as I said, he had a great rapport with all the boys. Not only did we have a rapport within ourselves, Al, we had a lovely rapport with him. And behind him, you had Ron Stewart, who was the sergeant major type, who sort of battened you down, and then he would pick you up and cuddle you again and say, "Don't worry about him," and come back to some sort of normality. So
well, nobody took any notes of Ron anyway, did they? So it didn't matter.
Al, can I just...
when he growled at you, listen, it's all right for you. When I was 16 and he was growling at me, mate, I was going, "Oh, I'm not having none of this." But and then Eddie would calm me down. But that was brilliant, mate. It was a real good dressing room, as you just rightly analysed. It was sad that that was let go. It wasn't the best.
Al, can I just interrupt a second, because we can only see half of you. I know you're going to have a go at me for it, but try and get yourself fully on screen so we can see your dashing good looks. There you go. That's better. Stay there.
I've got to move back. You want me back?
Well, as long as we can see everything that's there, not half of you. But we've got to talk about your debut, Tom. I mean, at the age of 16, I mean, Alan made his debut at 18, I think. But I mean, 16, that was so young. And I remember that game, 0-0 at home to Leicester City. Talk to us about, your feelings as you went into that and how the day progressed.
Well, again, it was based around Eddie. Eddie was the guy that sort of propelled me up to that level, and obviously very quickly. I joined from the club in July, so 4 months later, I've left school, and 4 months later, I'm playing in the first team at Stamford Bridge. So you can imagine the change mentally and physically. The day was brilliant. I mean, Eddie again he actually, I went in the car with him, Al. So I don't know how I got to the stadium, but probably had a bit of a sweat on me when I got to the stadium. But anyway, I got to the stadium and there was a few press around, and he sort of cajoled me into the corner. And then what Alan's just said about Tommy Baldwin, who was a ledge, but and I didn't know Tommy very, very well, but obviously I'd been training with him for that 2 or 3 months before I made the debut, and Tommy played up front with me, or I played up front with Tommy, and it was brilliant because I had that experience around me that sort of didn't let me go into overdrive or anything. They were just like, "You're right, kid. You're right." There was constantly sort of just asking, making sure I was all right, So when I got on the pitch, it was just like a natural sort of match, We had a lot of experience. John Ellings in midfield, Stevie Kember in midfield. So there was a lot of sort of experienced guys around me as well. I think Peter Hausman was on the left. So it was a team that obviously had that nous and that ability to sort of cajole me through it. But it was brilliant, mate. I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I was a season ticket holder at 5. And I went to the 65, 66, 67 semi-finals at Villa Park. Followed Alan and the boys through the 1969-70 cup victory over Leeds. So to pull the blue shirt on, mate, at any age would have been a result. But at 16 was crazy stuff, And it was funny the other day. It got brought up, and I actually put it on. I got it on YouTube, and I got the game up as I was going back in the train from a Chelsea game. I thought, actually, I'll have a look at that, and sure enough, it came up, and it was just really weird to look back on it all, But in answer to your question, Tony, long-winded answer, it was brilliant, and obviously it was just for me. If it had begun and ended there, it would have still been something that I'd have remember for the rest of my life. Fortunately, it went on to be another 150 games, which was good.
And you didn't mention nerves at all in that response. I mean, there must have been some nerves leading up to the game, and just as you were about to kick off, surely. To
be honest with you, Tony, no. I mean, I think I had nerves, excitement. I don't know how you want to sort of buttonhole it, I mean, Alan must have been the same at 18 because, I mean, as I said, with due respect, he was playing in a team there was far more expectancy with Alan's team at 18 than my team at 16. We were in a relegation battle.
Hey, Tom.
What's that, Al?
You got a better result than me.
Oh, yeah, maybe. What was yours?
We got beat 5-0.
Did you?
So much of them superstars around me.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, we drew 0-0, and as I said, I missed a few chances and had a couple of shots and bits. But as an occasion, I'll never forget it. It was brilliant. And then, as you know, I went on to make my second game again. Eddie, I'd been injured, and Eddie said to me the Friday, he said, "Are you fit?" I said, "Yeah, I've been training since Tuesday. I'm good." He said, "I'm going to put you on the bench tomorrow, Birmingham at home on my 17th birthday." And I was like, wow. And I don't think Eddie had a clue it was my birthday, but that didn't matter anyway. So he said, "I'm going to put you on the bench." Cut a long story very short, I came on and thinking it was about the 74th minute, scored the winning goal. And again, it was like, what a 17th birthday present that was. We beat Birmingham 2-1. Unfortunately, we still got relegated that year. But, two great early memories,
I do, but I must say something for me while we're talking. I thought about it the other day. Just before I made my day, I left Stoke and went to Arsenal. And I was injured again. I had a bad stomach injury, and I couldn't play for about 6-8 weeks. And I've made my debut. First game I played for Arsenal was against you.
All right.
And I see in a photograph the other day, which reminded me, it was at Highbury. It was Arsenal and Chelsea reserves.
Okay.
And that was my first game for Arsenal. And it was a Tuesday afternoon, Tommy, I think. And I remember I enjoyed it because I was playing against, you and a few of the other lads that I brought the world off. Yeah, and things went quite well. And I remember going in the office with Terry Neal afterwards, and he said, "You're ready to play in the first team?" And I said, "Oh, I don't really know." I said, "That was only a reserve game. It was a bit of a friendly for me. We had a laugh while we was out there." But that kind of brought back a lot of memories about I could have still been in the Chelsea playing with you in the reserves,
Yeah.
It was quite something, but that was
you'd been running the first team, mate. Forget Chelsea reserves. You'd been running the first team. So
I don't think so, Tom. When I remember I was going out with Eddie for a drink in the afternoons, when the times you were talking about, because I'd just signed for Arsenal, and he used to phone me up and said, "Let's meet down the townhouse in the afternoon." We go down in the afternoon. What's all this about?
Yeah.
And and I was very, very close to saying, "Why don't you get rid of Ron Stewart and bring me in as assistant manager and a player as well?"
Yeah.
Because I was on the run from Arsenal at that time,
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
So that would have been a good time. So it could have got me back, but I suppose it would have been hard getting rid of Ron Stewart at that time because he'd been for about 8 managers, hadn't he?
Yeah, he'd had a few. Yeah. He'd hung around a bit, mate, that's for sure. God bless him. But he was part of the furniture.
Do you know
Al, I know you don't like playing on the right, but try and move to the right a bit so we can see. That's it. A bit more.
I'm on the bench.
So we can see you.
Do you know his claim to fame, Tom? Ron Stewart?
No.
In his book, Alan Ball says in his book, when he was a kid at Blackpool, Ron Stewart threw me into the first team.
Right.
When I was 15, 16, about your age when you made your debut. And he swore by him.
Yeah.
But then he played in the World Cup when he was at Blackpool, didn't he? And then he went on to Everton from there. But he didn't. He was too young to realise what Ron was all about at that time.
Yeah.
Because we only knew Ron as someone who collected the balls and put the cones out,
Yeah. And he'd bark at you every now and again if he thought you were not doing the right thing. But I don't think technically as a coach, and I'm not being disrespectful, I don't think he was the man who could change a game. But as you say, he was sort of one who stood on the fringes and picked things up, yeah.
Tom, how deeply did it hurt the kids back then when you learned that Eddie was going or that he'd gone? How much of a blow was it to all of you?
I think, Tony, it was a massive blow, and probably more so in looking back at it now, in recollection as opposed to at the time. As a kid, you brush it off and you get on with, because it's your job. You've got to go and train. You've got to go and do what you've got to do. And the other thing was, we were very familiar with Ken Shalito, who took over, because he'd been our youth team manager for most of our lives. So there was no problem with the continuity within the club. Although Ken and Eddie, as Alan will know better than anybody, were totally different characters in the way they did things, and so there was a culture change as regards the way the managers manoeuvred you and coached you. But as regards personalities, we knew Ken very well, so it wasn't as though you were going to a complete stranger. He knew us and we knew him, so that side of it was quite easy. But losing Eddie was a massive blow. Alan's hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think that I think we underachieved as a group. There were some really good players there. I mean, Ray Wilkins, obviously was probably our best player there. But we had some real good games where we proved against the likes of Liverpool, who were European champions, that on our day we were decent. We just didn't have enough to get over the line every game. And I think that was we just needed that little bit of guidance from someone like Uddy or someone in there that could take us to that next level. And obviously, we're hoping that Eddie was going to do that, but it didn't happen.
And you, obviously, you must keep in touch with the guys that you play with, you know, in that era.
Yeah.
Who you're still friendly with from that time?
Tony, fortunately, most of them. And I love seeing the boys, and Uddy would appreciate it. It's just nice to go and have a chat and a beer and a laugh. But you know, I was 66 on Thursday, and that dressing room mentality never leaves you. Clive Walker was over. Unfortunately, he's had to go back. He had a bereavement in the family, so he's had to fly back on Sunday. We were going out on Wednesday night for a couple of beers. But I'm also doing the match day hosting at the stadium now, which is brilliant because, you know, you've got a load of the boys there, you know, some in my era, some not. Kerry and Canner's not in my era, but Ron Harris is still doing it. Uddy knows Ron far better than myself. Johnny Boyle's getting involved now as well, which is great. And then you've got Gary Chivers, David Lee, Colin Pates, you know, Johnny Bumpstead. There's a load of really good characters that are there. And it's just great fun to go there, Tone, and then walk around the lounges, say hello to Chelsea people. You know, it's for me, it's like being reborn again. It's, you know, I'm still part of the club, watching them. That hasn't been pretty this season, by the way, but watching them at times, as you well know. But you know, it's still great fun.
Brilliant, Tom. One thing I need a favour off you.
Go on, mate.
How'd you get a job like that? They sent you a form or something.
If I'm honest, I don't know, mate. I just
you got to think they've lost my address.
I'll pass your email address on, see if we can get a contact for you up there. But no, honestly,
it shouldn't upset them, I suppose, Tom.
You'll never upset them, mate.
Boilers is coming back, I believe.
Yeah, Boilers is. I mean, I've last 3 games I've done the hospitality with John. It's been Kerry Dixon, myself, and Johnny Boyle. So it's been great, you know. And as I said, Ronnie's there. Chibs is normally walking around with Ron. And as I said, you know, Kerry, Canners, all them sort of boys, great characters. You know, people that, you know, I've got the greatest respect for, even though I didn't play with Kerry and Canners, but Johnny Bumps and all them boys been great mates for years now. So you can imagine it, you know, once the job's done, it's a real crack, and we do have a giggle.
Now, I understand you're spending a lot of your time in Spain these days. Perhaps you could keep us up to date with what's going on there and how much you divide your time between the UK and Spain these days.
Well, it's only because I went to Cashkin, Tone. So I'm sort of trying to get battens back now. No, seriously, we had some issues 4 or 5 years ago, and but no, you know, we had to come out. Then Brexit hit, and then all sorts. So we're now a resident here because it's easier to do that. We're in the Marbella area, which is very nice. But I'm back every other week now to do the matchday hospitality, which is brilliant. So you know, I've got you know, 3 beautiful kids, obviously 3 in-laws who are lovely, and I've got 6 grandchildren. So I want to be a part of that. So this little sort of ferry back to the UK every 2 weeks sort of scratches that itch, Tone. You know, I want to be a part of them and see them. So it works a little bit. So we'll kick on over the year and see where it leads us. But I love it, mate, because as I said, it gets me back to the UK, gets me back to seeing people I love. Family and friends, so it works always round, you know.
I don't, but just getting away from football a little bit, Tommy. Quite a shock one day in St Bart's Hospital.
Yeah, love you. Yeah, mate.
What were the odds of that?
Oh well, you and I both like a bet, and I wouldn't have had a diner on it, mate. I've got to tell you. But so for people that don't know, Alan obviously had I was actually with you the Friday you had the accident we were at Ascot together. I don't know if you remember that, and you had the accident and I was going to see you that week. We're going to have a chat about football agencies and doing bits together.
Yeah.
And then obviously I turned the radio on and heard that and Alan had a bad accident, and anyway, as he said, he ended up in St Bart's, and my wife's mum unfortunately she had cancer, and she was in St Bart's as well, and she'd never been in a gym in her life. But they said, look, you've got to go down and do some exercise. So then she went down and did some exercise and sat next to a certain Alan Hudson.
Well, what happened was,
you tell it, Al, you tell it.
I remember being in a gym, and to be perfectly honest, well, we only know the truth, but in my early days in the Royal London, when they first wanted to take me down to the gym, I was petrified. Yeah. And I was great at, I loved training and everything. I was petrified. I made out I was ill. I wouldn't go down. These two young nurses come down to get me, and I was frightened to go because I'd not long been out of a coma and everything else. But then they moved me on to St Bart's. And that morning, I remember your mother-in-law coming in, lovely lady. Absolutely lovely lady. She came in a wheelchair, and she sat next to my Uncle George.
All right.
And they were talking. Yeah, my Uncle George, thankfully, is still with us. And they were talking away, and Claire, my physio, screamed at me, Alan, behave yourself. Don't talk to other people when you're working and all this. And George said, "Oh no, it's not that." He said, "But it's." This lady just said that her son-in-law played for Chelsea as well. And that's how it came about.
Right.
And it's a million. And then obviously you passing one day, popped into my room on the way to see her and all this. And then they moved me out of my room to put your wife's mum in, didn't they? Yeah. And that was where she died, wasn't it?
She died in that room. Yeah. But it was, as I said, you couldn't write the script.
No,
and it's madness. But let me, Tony. I mean, this isn't a funny story because obviously Alan wasn't well, and my mother-in-law ended up dying. But so when she told my wife Anne that she'd met Alan, and she said he's in the room down the bottom there, and so because Alan had some issues, I had to go in fully clad with all the sort of the gear on, so mask on and everything else, and gloves, and I was very gingerly and knocked on the door, opened the door, and Uddy's obviously knowing I'm coming, and I've walked in very gingerly, and I'm looking at him because I know he's not well, and he's gone, "Hello, Doc, I'm in a bit of pain. I need some stuff," and I was just about to say, "Uddy, it's me," and he went, "Come here, you nutcase." And I went, "Oh." Then I turned around. He's got the racing on in the corner. It was like, what is going on here? It was just like, it was mental how he sort of did it all. "Oh, hello, Doc. Oh, Doc, I'm in pain." And man,
that was the time I used to have the drinks on the sideboard and all that. And when the doctor used to say to me, "Alan," he says, I think I prefer you to drink cranberry with your vodka, not the orange juice. It's better for your wounds."
Well, then when the sun started shining a little bit, and I was going up, as I said, "I just go and see my mother-in-law, God bless her," but then I'd leave my wife and go and see Alan, and then we'd go down to the garden, and then sure enough there'd be a little bottle of vodka or gin or something down there, so we'd have a little tipple, and then I'd go back and get back with the wife. But no, it was. It's very hard to say. It wasn't fun times because Alan was, not well, and as I said, my mother-in-law wasn't well, but we still laugh about it.
Yeah, it'd have been fun if the mother-in-law had been all right, mate, because I'd see them times as a great challenge and something that I was used to after being what we'd been through. But anyway,
fair, mate, I'd also say as well, because
that was still a memorable time.
Because you again, we then raised, because obviously my mother-in-law Ivy died of cancer, so then we tried to organise a few games, and Uddy was brilliant. Tony, obviously he came along, and we, obviously he's a big name, big face, a big character, and he helped us raise a few quid as well for the Cancer Trust, which was brilliant. So I don't think I've really thanked you, but thank you for that, Al, because that was brilliant. Someone like him turning up to a game was brilliant. So amazing. Now, as you say, them paths crossed, crazy.
Yeah, I never received an envelope, Tom.
Well, the tax man was looking at me, mate. I couldn't.
Now,
By the way, Ascot Racers was our friend Johnny Westwood was with us. So that's, I'll give him a mention.
Westy, yeah, he was, yeah, good boy. Yeah,
Ascot, yeah, great times, mate.
Alan always tells me about these racing nights you two used to share together. So come on, there must be some stories that you can tell us from those days.
Nah, I mean, yeah, I'll tell you how much we lost, Tone. How long you got? But no, we had some great fun. I mean, social days. I mean, because then Uddy would be there, and Ozzy had then gone to Southampton, and then Bawley and Shannon would be at the races, and all them characters, and you know, I mean, again, it was just great to go there, you know, and have some fun, do a few quid, but laugh doing it, you know. By the way, the races are soulless now. I mean, I go occasionally, and when I'm back in the UK, and it's like one man and his dog there, and there's nothing about the place anymore. So I think we had the best of the times. But as I said, it was great just to mix with them guys.
But the only difference is, Tommy, if it had been 25, 30 years later, but as everyone says today, you know, we would have owned the horses, wouldn't we? Like they do today, the players that own racehorses, and you know, going back to Robert Fowler and all that lot. Now look at Michael Owen and all that kind of stuff. It's been fantastic. It just goes to show how well Mickey Shannon done. You know, fantastic.
Yeah, he's done well training. I mean, Jack's took it over now, his son, and he's doing well as well. But I think Mick's at the back of him, and you know, obviously supporting him. But so I gather Mick hasn't been very well at times, but. Actually, Mick's done really well, mate. I mean, Francis Lee tried it, didn't he? And obviously, he didn't make as big a success as Mick done training. So that's a tough gig, that, mate. And he's been there a long time now. So.
There you go, Sam. Back to football for you. You've had enough of the racing.
I told you, Tommy. He's like my second wife. He can read my mind.
well, I'm still on my first tone.
My next question was going to be for someone who obviously supported Chelsea from such a young age. You said earlier you had a season ticket at the age of 5, made your debut at 16, played with all the other youth team graduates that you grew up with. What was that moment like when you had to move on, when you moved to QPR in 1980? How much of a drag was that to tear yourself away from Stamford Bridge?
Tony, it was a nightmare, if I'm honest. And, you know, I look back at it now, and I was on my honeymoon, and I got a phone call from nobody at Chelsea, by the way. Nobody rang me at all. I got a call from Jim Smith, who, again, Uddy would know well. And Jim said to me, look, we've done a deal with Chelsea. We've agreed a fee. When you come off your honeymoon, you've got to come up to Birmingham and see me. And I was like, what? You know, what's this about type stuff? And obviously at that stage, they just built the East Stand. They had to sell Ray to Man United to fund it. I think Gary Stanley, a few of the boys to fund it. And I was the last sort of cog in that wheel to pay the last bit off. So I was gutted. I went to Jim Smith and met him and said to him, I made the package so bad that he wouldn't sign me. And I wanted Reddy's here and Reddy's there, and also don't tell the tax man that, by the way. But and all of a sudden he went, oh wait, you're obviously not the player that I thought you were. And I went, brilliant. That was me. I was still at Chelsea, then expecting sort of the people in charge at the time, which was obviously the Mearses again, who Alan alluded to earlier, to come up with a contract, because I was out of contract. But they had to get rid of me, and so eventually Tommy Dock came on the phone via Ken Shalito and another player to say, look, you know, and they tell you the story. It's a sob story. QPR's as big a club as Chelsea. It's a great club. It's this. And naively, I thought, I'll give it a go type thing. Then Venner's got there. Tommy got the sack. Venner's went there. Venner said to me, Terry, no matter how well you play, you'll never be in my team, because my understanding, and I didn't understand that at the time, but later on in life, I gather that him and Tommy Dock didn't get on, and if I did well, it reflected on Tommy Dock, And the irony was he also got rid of a guy called Dave McCreary, who ended up playing the World Cup for Northern Ireland and doing very well, and going up to Newcastle, and Chris Woods, who became England goalkeeper. So, you know, I gather that was the case. But look, these things happen. Again, it's political tone, and I didn't, you know, unfortunately, I got involved in that and suffered through it. But if I'm totally honest, mate, after that, my attitude was shocking. I mean, I was more concerned with what you know, with the 2:30 at Redcar than I was training, you know. And it was, you know, it's, you look back on it now and you go, what did I think I was? How good did I think I was? That's how naive and how stupid can you be to not train every day and train properly, you know. And I think that it's, you know, whilst I had a couple of smacks in the face along the line, I just think that, you know, sometimes people handle it better than I did at that stage. And yeah, it didn't work. And then I went to Palace for 2.5 years. Again, I went through the motions, did okay in certain games and other bits. But and then from there, mate, you know, it's a game of snakes and ladders, Al, isn't it? And I ate all the snakes, mate. I was all over the gaff. So I ended up going to Greece for AEK Athens for a year. That didn't work because my registration wasn't valid. And then after that, it was just walk downhill all the way, you know.
So, Tommy, I must show you something here. It's not many people have seen this. Talking about the 2:30 at Redcar. Have a go at this photo. Can you see it?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it.
That's the great Stanley Bowles and the great Donald Shanks with the racing paper at the near post at Loftus Road. Talking about the
that is brilliant. Love it.
And that's a true. That was a true story. I know the story. They had a geezer, the fella behind the goal had a radio at Loftus Road, and they were listening to the racing on the radio. Believe this, in the crowd at Loftus Road, and a corner would come in, and Shanksy said, "I headed back out for a corner because until it was the end of the race." Yeah. That's how they work. So that was well, you're so close to White City as well, you know.
Yeah. No, I didn't play with Stan. I love, whenever I see Stan, I haven't seen him for a long time, but whenever I did, he's again great company. But I played with Ravi. I played with Don Shanks when I went to QPR, and he said one day we're going to. He said, "What are you doing after training?" And I lived sort of Basingstoke way, so I went nothing. He said, "You fancy going to Newbury? Walter Swinburne fancies one in the first."
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, yeah, okay, Rav, I'll drive." So because he didn't drive, so I drove him down there, and got there. Walter's all swings the first. He said, "Did you back it?" I said, "Yeah, I had a score on it." He said, "Oh, I had 200 quid on it." I went, "Oh, happy days! Like, fill your boots." You know, that was a fortune. You took about 1980, and fourth race, he comes up to me. He said, "Couldn't lend me a score, could you?" And I went, "But you've had 200 quid on the first winner." He went, "Oh yeah, I had another load of other tips." He said, "So I had to lend him a score in race 4." It was like, but I love Don. He's great company, really good company.
Did you ever know how good a player he was, Tom?
Who?
Don. He's asked me to give him a mention on here today. He said he needs to know, the people to know how good a player he actually was.
I've got to tell you, mate, I really like playing with Don. As a striker, he'd get down the right-hand side, and his quality of ball in the box was fantastic. And he was really, really good. And, you know, I scored at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea, and Ravi hit to the near stick, and I got in front of the defender, flicked it in, and it was a great ball in. And, you know, as a striker, I used to feed strikers all day long with passes, but you know, it's always nice to know when he gets down there, he ain't going to faff around with it, mate. He's going to smash it in the box, and then you can make your runs. But I enjoyed playing with Shanksy. It's great. I enjoyed his social life with Shanksy as well, because he's mad as a March hare.
That sums it up in one, mate.
Love it.
Another character that you're both were very familiar with, and for someone like you, Tommy, who was as a fan of Chelsea at the age of 5 and grew up supporting the club, it must have been a pinch me moment when you got into the first team, and you know some of these players were still around. I mean, I know Ozzy wasn't there at the time, but I know Ozzy was a hero of yours growing up, wasn't he?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, obviously, I was always, even as a kid, a striker, a forward, and obviously a big Chelsea fan. And my first sort of family idol was Bobby Tamblyn, because Bobby was then in that sort of era, and he was my granddad's favourite. And then obviously Ozzy appeared, and I used to love watching Ozzy. I mean, again, Huddy would know better than myself, but I think when he broke his leg, it probably stopped him going forward as much as he could have done in his career. I don't think he ever sort of recovered physically from that. But again, Alan would have a better opinion than me. But no, I loved Ozzy. And the strange thing is, Tone, when obviously he won the FA Cup with Southampton, and then we brought him back to Stamford Bridge. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
So here I am, Middlesbrough away, Ozzy's first game. I'm sat next to my idol, like in the changing room. And even at the age of, what was I then, 20, I still got that buzz and that, oh my God, he's there, like, you know, and it's brilliant. So little Ian Britton plays on the right. He gets the ball down the right hand side and looks up, and I was at the near stick. So, you know, you talk to you know, if you're there stationary, come out of there and let someone else go in. Well, as I've come out, Ozzy's drifted into the near stick, glanced the cross in, we're 1-0 up. There I am, 1-0 up, jumping all over my idol at Ayresome Park. It was fantastic. We got beat 7-2. We got murdered. We got absolutely bashed up. And Danny Blanchflower was the manager. And by the way, this is pre-Christmas. And Danny came into the dressing room after. He said, guys, he said, when we get relegated, we'll be a far better team next year. And this was Christmas. We went, oh yeah, okay, Danny, lovely, and that was it. But so that was playing with Ozzy, and again, a bit like what I just said about Shanksy. He'd say to me, "What you doing? What you doing today after training? Did you fancy going to Fogwell?" Fogwell was the sort of go-to at the time, and again, because all the boys from Southampton, Bobby Stokes, Jimmy Steele, all the guys that Al knows, Bawley, Mickey Shannon, they'd all go down there and have a few beers and watch the races. So I was dragged kicking and screaming, Tony, down to Fogwell by Ozzy. But I loved every minute of it, mate. Wouldn't change it.
And of course, you became friends.
Yeah. I mean, Tony, I know it must be a strange thing to say at 66. I'm 66, but I still get a buzz. You know, even when I see Ron at the games, you know, and this gentleman, you know, they were idols of mine, mate. You know, it's always going to be in you because of the way you've grown up, you know. And yeah, I mean, obviously to meet Ozzy and then become a friend was like, if you'd have said me that in 1967 or something, I'd have said, mate, you're losing it, you know. But it happened, and you know, it was great.
You know, the strangest thing about that one, Tom, is it's got to be more than football. It's because I never felt that way when I used to bump into Stanley Matthews at Stoke quite a lot, you know, and I never got a buzz at all. It was unbelievable. I suppose it's where you're brought up and everything else. And he was supposed to be allegedly the best winger in the world. I don't Stoke supporters probably think he was, but the great Tom Finney was probably superior and probably one of the greatest English players of all time. But I never felt that way about, and I think that's something to be said about not the football club, but the place itself, and you know, the kind of people you're brought up with. That couldn't happen today because I think the kind of apprenticeships you served with the lads, you know. Now, Well Sharp was gone when you was a kid, wasn't it?
Yeah, what, Hendon?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my first training with the team was Mitcham.
Yeah. So you went there as an apprentice when you signed?
Yeah, July of '74. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was basically around the time I left, Tom, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, I think if you
was you actually on the training field when me and Ozzy got pulled over by Sexton and they got rid of us? So was that? Did that come afterwards?
No, that must have been. No, I wouldn't have been about then, mate. I mean, I remember playing against you guys as basically they had us down as sort of you were doing some shape or something, and I was only, I think it was 14 and a half or something, and I played against Eddie McCready. They said, look, go and sit out wide right. So I was sat right, but you were all playing and bits and bobs. It was like a dog with two dicks, mate. It was brilliant, you know, and I loved it. But that was my first sort of foray into playing against you, or being around you guys. But and we were only there as cones, but it was brilliant.
Let's talk a bit about today's side, Tom. I mean, as you said earlier, you're always there, match day host these days. What's your opinion in terms of what's going on now?
Look, it's not pretty at the moment, is it? But I think we've got to give the guys time to, certainly Maurizio, because he's inherited a group of guys that again, if you talk about camaraderie and growing up together, these guys wouldn't have had a clue they were 18 months ago. And I think that they need to knit together. You know, one or two, if I'm honest, need to turn up because I think they're sort of basking in the glory of being, you know, a big money signing, and I think they need to start showing the Chelsea people what they're about and showing some character, which we did at Villa last week for the first time for a little while, and I was pleased for the boys because, you know, it was a tough gig going there. And I thought we handled ourselves very well and actually showed the commitment that the first thing about being a Chelsea player is commitment 100%. And if you're a great player around that, we'll all understand it. But first thing you've got to show us is a bit of heart, a bit of guts and a bit of organisation. And I think we showed that last week. So I think it's a long-term thing, Tony. I think that we've been spoiled. I think that it's... If we relate it back to Alan's team with all the superstars, Charlie Cook, Alan Hudson, Peter Osgood, you know, all them sort of guys, even Nobby Houseman, who I used to travel in with from Basingstoke, you know, was an unsung hero. They had a great side. And then, unfortunately, Chelsea fans inherited me and the rest of my mob, and who again, you know, as I said, weren't as good a group as Alan's team. And I think you look at this team now, they've got a lot to live up to. You know, if you're a striker, you're living up against Didier Drogba or Diego Costa. If you're a midfield player, you've got Frank Lampard or Michael Essien or Michael Ballack or, you know, all the superstars we had there. If you're a centre-half, you're up against John Terry. If you're a goalkeeper, you've got Petr Cech. We seem to be looking back quite a bit at the moment and going, oh, do you remember when we had them days? Because obviously, at the moment, it's not as pretty as maybe it should be. But in answer to your question, Tony, I think that there are some good players there. They've proven it. Man City at home, we were fantastic. Arsenal at home, supposedly one of the two best teams in the country. We were brilliant. We were 2-0 up until we gifted Declan Rice a goal, and it was 2-2. So there are times this year where we've turned up really, really well and shown what we're capable of. And I think what we need now is that consistency and that game by game proving that fact. But, you know, Maurizio Pochettino, I like. Jesus Perez, his assistant, is a friend of mine. They're really good people, and I think they will get it right given time. But it's very hard to be patient when you're, you know, now as a Chelsea fan, because, you know, we've won the Champions League twice.
Now, Tony, obviously, you're not going to ask me that question, are you?
Well, he was so confident last week. He was going to have a little bet on Chelsea to win at Villa.
I did fancy them strongly to beat Villa, but that wasn't because the way Chelsea were playing, of course. But, you know, I believe exactly what Tommy's talking about. It's a lot of people forget, well, the majority of people forget, is that football is like life. It's a circle. You know, you had Ferguson's team, and you had Matt Busby's team, of the 68, won the European Cup, and then they come to the end the year I went to Stoke and they got relegated. Then they were no good for a few years until Ferguson came in. The same thing happened at Liverpool. It's a circle. One team can't be up there forever.
No.
It's got to be, you know, who would have said when Manchester United were winning everything under Sir Alex that the Man City fans would be like that today?
Yeah.
With Guardiola. And they look back at Old Trafford now and think, you know, there's second class citizens really in Manchester. So, you know, football is a circle, and it's the same all over the world. You know, it's like when I started playing, Italy was the place to go and play.
Yeah.
And English players were going out there. Now they're all coming here. You know, it's an amazing turnaround. And I suppose at the end of the day, Tom, it's all about where the money is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's why people were going to Italy, wasn't it? As you say, a long time ago, that's where the big bucks were. Also, I mean, I think it's an attractive league. You've got some big clubs there. But, you know, you look at where we are now as a group. I mean, even Real Madrid and Barcelona are struggling financially with this financial fair play stuff running around. And obviously English clubs are now, if you're a footballer now, your first aim is to play in the UK, get a few quid in the odd, and then you can go and play for wherever you like, because the money over in our countries is crazy stuff, you know.
Absolutely. Even if you're a female.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, then you get a job on the telly afterwards and talking about the game. I mean, there's more of them than there are us now. And if you're actually Mick Richards, what do you think of Mick Richards?
What, as a pundit?
Well, or selling cars.
Yeah. I'm not sure about his jig.
No, I thought you might get out of the end. Yeah, but that's the way it goes. You remember, I mean, the times. Can you imagine if Brian Clough was about today sitting next to Mick Richards? You know, it's just it's gone beyond. You know, it's a comedy show at the moment. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, mate. But I think there's a lot of. I mean, I watched the Super Bowl last night. I'm Super Bowl lagged at the moment because I was up and doing all that. 1 second, something's just come up on my computer. Don't know what that is. Don't think I can get it with it. And it's Ladbrokes. Pay your bill. No. You know, and you know, you look at their sporting thing last night was magnificent, and you know, they're trying to make it, you know, a more functional thing in the UK now, and trying to bring, as you said, different characters into, whether it be analysing games or whatever. But you know, for me, mate, it's just the game hasn't changed too much. It's still about putting the ball in their net more than they do ours. So that's the functionality for me.
So, something struck me about what you said earlier, Tom, about your team following Alan's team, and of course, Alan's team won trophies. Yours, unfortunately, didn't. But yours was a bloody good team as well, and it was such a shame that it was broken up in the way it was, and probably it was as a result of Eddie leaving the way he did. And it had shades of, funnily enough, 10 years earlier, when the same thing happened to Doherty's Diamonds.
Yeah.
But that was a good team, and as you said, you know, the camaraderie was fantastic. It was evident to the fans that the camaraderie was great amongst those players.
Yeah, and even now, you know, when I'm walking around the lounges and the boxes, fortunately, there's still people who actually remember us. I mean, we take these photos around so big with pictures of us when we were 17, 18, and we're giving them to little kids, and little kids are looking at us as if to say, "Are you mad? That can't be you. Where's your barnet gone?" So yeah, it's a strange thing, mate. But yeah, look, we could have been a good side, Tony. We could have been a good side at a given time, and unfortunately, whilst the East Stand was a necessity, it made the club. It put them on a structurally poor financial level. and they had to pay the bills, and to pay the bills, they had to get rid of the likes of Ray Wilkins and eventually in 1980 myself. So, which obviously wasn't ideal. Had we stuck together, would we have been a good side? I'd like to think so, but it's one of them things you'll never know, you know. But going back to, sorry, what I was going to say about the lounges. There's a lot of people that really enjoyed that because we were young, enthusiastic kids, you know, pulling the Chelsea shirt on with love, with, you know, with all the things that you expect from a Chelsea player, as I said earlier, and they saw that in us. They saw that enthusiasm. They saw that love and for the club. They saw everything about it, and they still talk now fondly of it. And the irony is, as you just said, we got relegated more times than we got promoted. So how can you actually love them times if you look at the records we actually had? But we did. The following was fantastic. The year we went up at Wolves, you know the story. They were banned because there was murders at, you know, most games at that size, organised chaos, wasn't it? You know, with the fighting and everything. And they were banned from the Wolves Stadium. And as we came out at Molineux, we had to get a point. They had to get a point. We looked at the right-hand side. Well, we didn't actually look. There was a roar, a massive, great big roar. And we looked up and there was a bank of blue and white. And I gather later, I had a year at Wolves, they said that we felt it was safer for all of Wolverhampton for them to be in the stadium than running around creating havoc in the town centre, looting shops and things like that. So yeah, and that's how it worked out. And that stuck with me for a long time. That sort of, no matter how bad we were, they were brilliant. They were absolute. The fans were magnificent. I mean, it was just, and I don't know why. It may be because we were all kids growing up together. I can't put a finger on it. But for us, I don't remember a game where, even though we weren't very good, they booed us off or anything like that. Whereas you look at where Chelsea have been, and certainly last Sunday, the Wolves game, they got booed off at half-time and got booed off the thing. And so it's a different group of supporters now. The expectancy is far greater than obviously nowadays.
Yeah, but I guess a similar link from Alan's time in the club, really. I mean, Alan and Ozzy was sold because of the stand, and your team was pretty much broken up because of the East Stand as well.
Yeah.
Sad, really, to you know, recollect a situation like that when both teams, Alan's team and your team, had so much going for them. Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean, the stand of progress. I mean, the stand's still there to this day. So it's testament to its, you know, it was needed because the old Stamford Bridge was, whilst it had a lot of character, you know, it was in need of redevelopment, which is obviously what they did. But the only thing that gutted me, they took away the greyhound track. So I mean, because my granddad and his brothers used to go over to watch Chelsea. Then they used to go to the pub across, now called the Butcher's Hook, come back in the night and do their brains at the Dogs. So I was fortunate because I was a Kennington boy. I was a Lambeth, but the Kennington, and I could have gone to. They could have took me to Millwall, and they could have took me to Chelsea. Fortunately, there was a Dogs track at Chelsea.
That was the key, was it?
They like to bet, God bless them, and a night out. So that was watch Chelsea and then go to the Dogs at night. So I'm so pleased for, you know, that I went that way, not at Millwall. Although I like Millwall.
Brilliant. Okay, well, listen, we've taken up far too much of your time, Tom. It's been great having you on. Al, is there anything more you'd like to say to Tommy before we wrap it up?
Well, it's just a matter of catching up with him. I'm going to fly out to Spain to see him about anything else, but catching up.
He's got to invite you first.
He's got an open invitation, Tom.
I didn't invite him to some bars. He just bars in my room.
I was playing doctors out.
Yeah. He had the old white coat on, so I'm like Sid James. No, we'll get together. We always have fun when we get together, mate. That's for sure.
Yeah. Always a pleasure.
Great. All right, Tommy, once again, thanks very much for coming on. It's been great to relive the old times with you. Good luck in Spain.
Cheers, Tommy.
We'll probably see you for the next home game, which are probably in a couple of weeks' time, I should think.
No, I'm in Cape Town.
All right.
So yeah, I'm going out to Cape Town. I've got a wedding out there. A friend of mine's getting married, so just diving out there.
He's a bit of a
He's
a bit of a globetrotter, isn't he, Al?
Mate, this old sob story we've been listening to.
I've got the economy out.
On me anyway. We'll catch up when you come to, because Tony and I meet before some games and sometimes afterwards. We'll catch up when you come over and have an hour.
Mate, I saw Tony at the stadium at the Wolves game, Tony, wasn't it?
Wolves game, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw Tony outside. But no, listen, mate, before the game, obviously we're doing our little bit of work around the lounges, but definitely have a beer with you after, mate. Always be a pleasure.
Yeah, be great, Tom. Be great.
Lovely, mate.
Lovely to see you, mate. Look well.
And you. Stay well.
Thanks again, guys. And thanks. Can I just say thanks to everyone for watching the podcast? As I said right at the beginning, if you do like what we do, and it looks like a lot of you do, please hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. It'd be great for us going forward. We can get lots more fantastic guests like Tommy Langley's been today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
Thanks, mate.
Well done, Tommy.
See you, mate. Thank you.
See you, lad. Ta-da.
Cheers, Al. Cheers, Tony.
Cheers, Tom.